Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about an ingredient that you might have actually had for breakfast in your oatmeal, but its real power might just be what it can do for your skin. We're diving deep into beta-glucan, a completely natural compound that's got some seriously impressive science behind it when it comes to helping our skin heal itself. So here's our roadmap. We'll kick things off with the basics, what beta-glucan even is. Then we'll get into the really cool science of how it actually works with our skin. After that, we'll look at the proof, the clinical evidence for its healing powers, and then we'll explore how its benefits go way beyond just wound care. We'll wrap it all up by looking at what this all means for the future of skin health. All right, let's dive in. Okay, so first things first. What in the world is beta-glucan? Well, at its core, beta-glucan is a polysaccharide, which is just a long chain of sugar molecules, glucose to be specific. But this isn't something cooked up in a lab. You find it everywhere in nature. Scientists have this term for it, a biological response modifier. Now that sounds complicated, but it just means it's a substance that can talk to our body's own systems and influence them, especially our immune system. And you can find it in so many different places. It's in the cell walls of the yeast we use to bake bread, in mushrooms, and of course, in cereals like oats and barley. But you'll also find it in certain bacteria, in seaweed, and even in algae. And this variety is super important because, as you're about to see, where it comes from totally changes what it does. And this slide right here is why that source matters so much. Beta-glucans from things like yeast and fungi have this really complex branched structure. Think of it like a tree with lots of branches. That specific shape makes them amazing at interacting with our immune system. On the other hand, the beta-glucans you get from cereals, they have a much simpler linear structure, more like a straight line. And that shape is why they're usually linked to things like lowering cholesterol. So the takeaway is simple. Its shape dictates its job. So we know the branched ones from yeast and fungi are the key players for our immune system. But that brings up a really big question. How does a big molecule like this actually get into our skin to do anything in the first place? Yeah, this was the question that stumped scientists for a long time. For years, the common thinking was, hey, this molecule is huge. There's no way it can get past the skin's protective barrier. The assumption was it just sits on the surface. But you know what? Newer research has totally turned that idea on its head. And here's how it actually happens. It's brilliant. First, the molecule doesn't have to brute force its way through our skin cells. Instead, it kind of winds its way between them through the intercellular space. Once it's in, it acts like a key. It finds and binds to special receptors on our skin's first responders, the immune cells called macrophages, and also on our skin's construction workers, the fibroblasts. This connection triggers a whole signaling cascade. The macrophages start releasing growth factors, which is like a manager shouting, "Okay, team, let's go." And that tells the fibroblasts to start building new collagen and creating fresh, new skin. It's literally unlocking the skin's own repair engine. Okay, that mechanism sounds amazing in theory. But does the science actually back it up? Is there hard evidence? Let's take a look, starting with what we've seen in the lab. So what you're seeing here is a classic lab experiment. Scientists take a layer of human skin cells and make a tiny scratch in it to act like a wound. Then they see how fast it closes. As you can see, after only 24 hours, the cells that were treated with a specific yeast-derived beta-glucan showed about a 40% faster healing of that gap compared to the cells that got no treatment at all. That's a huge difference. Now, moving from a petri dish to animal studies, the evidence gets even stronger. In diabetic mice, which are often used because their healing is impaired, a yeast-derived glucan sped up wound healing a lot. In another study, this time on mice with infected burns, it knocked down harmful bacteria by over 99%. And it's not just from yeast. An algae-derived glucan film helped wounds contract much faster. In rats with burns, a different yeast-type glucan helped protect the tissue from damage. The message here is clear. Across different models and sources, the results are consistently positive.
And this is where it gets really compelling, the human trials. In a study on kids with serious burns, a beta-glucan matrix didn't just help the wounds heal, it also significantly reduced their pain. For diabetic foot ulcers, which are notoriously hard to treat, the group using a yeast glucan saw a healing rate that was more than double the placebo group after just 8 weeks. And for venous leg ulcers, a purified yeast glucan cut the average ulcer size by more than half in 90 days. I mean, these are real-world, measurable results.
But here's the kicker. The story doesn't end with healing wounds. It turns out that those exact same mechanisms, boosting collagen, protecting cells, talking to the immune system, also have some incredible benefits for our overall skin health and even its appearance.
It's a true multitasker. So on the surface, it forms this very fine, breathable film that helps lock in moisture. But deeper down, that same collagen stimulation that helps heal wounds can also improve skin firmness and reduce the look of wrinkles. And some studies even show certain forms can help protect our skin cells from UV damage and act as an antioxidant, fighting off environmental stress.
And that's not just a theory. A human study back in 2005 specifically looked at the anti-wrinkle effects of an oat-derived beta-glucan, and after 8 weeks, objective analysis using detailed photography showed a visible and a measurable reduction in fine lines and wrinkles. So it's confirmed. So we've gone from the molecule to the mechanism to the hard evidence. What's the big picture takeaway from all of this? Let's wrap it up and look at what this really means. This quote from a major scientific review really says it all. The scientific community has reached a consensus. Beta-glucan isn't a one-trick pony. It is a genuinely promising active ingredient for a whole range of things, from serious wound healing to moisturizing to anti-aging. So let's just quickly recap the most important points. Beta-glucan is not a passive ingredient sitting on your skin. It is an active one that really communicates with your skin cells. The evidence for this is strong, from the lab all the way up to human clinical trials. It has benefits for both wound care and overall skin health. And maybe the biggest lesson here is that its source and its structure are absolutely critical. That's what determines its power. And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. We're seeing how these incredibly potent natural molecules can work with our own biology to heal and protect. As this science keeps evolving, it really makes you wonder, how will compounds like this reshape everything from medicine to our daily skincare, creating a future where our skin is just healthier and more resilient than ever before? Thanks for joining us.